Halo semua, selamat datang di acara daring yang spesial dalam rangka Kedutaan Besar Australia Jakarta memperingati ke-75 tahun kemerdekaan Indonesia, serta peluncuran dua sumber sejarah penting yang menceritakan peranan Australia dalam mendukung kemerdekaan Indonesia. Anton and Me, When Merdeka Came to Sydney, autobiografi oleh penulis Australia Charlotte Maramis, diedit oleh Hamish MacDonald, dan pemeran daring Museum Maritime Nasional Australia, Two Nations, Australia and Indonesia, tahun 1945 sampai 49. Perkenalkan, nama saya Emma dari Kedubes Australia Jakarta, dan saya akan menjadi pemandu acara hari ini. Atas nama Kedubes Australia Jakarta, saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada mitra acara kami, Museum Maritim Nasional Australia dan Asosiasi Australia Indonesia, New South Wales. Saya sangat senang menyambut tamu-tamu spesial hari ini. Hari ini Anda akan mendengar dari Duta Besar Australia untuk Indonesia, Bapak Gary Quinlan, yang akan membuka secara resmi acara ini. Bapak Hamish MacDonald, editor dari buku Anton and Me, When Merdeka Came to Sydney, dan Ibu Ayla Wirnarto, teman dekat dari Charlotte dan Anton Maramis. Nanti, Bapak Hamish dan Ibu Ayla akan membacakan kutipan singkat dari Anton and Me untuk kita akan berbagi cerita dengan kita mengenai peranan Australia dalam mendukung kemerdekaan Indonesia melalui foto-foto koleksi keluarganya dan juga dari pemeran daring dari Museum Maritim Nasional Australia, Two Nations, Australia and Indonesia, tahun 1945 sampai 49. Sebelum kita mulai, saya punya beberapa pertanyaan untuk Anda yang sedang menonton acara online ini. Gampang sekali kuisnya. Apakah Anda tahu jawaban dari dua pertanyaan ini? Pertanyaan pertama, question number 1. Di kota mana Charlotte Maramis, penulis Anton and Me, dan perwira kapal Indonesia Anton Maramis bertemu? Oke, pertanyaan kedua. Apa nama museum yang meluncurkan pemeran Two Nations, Australia and Indonesia hari ini? Ketik jawabnya di kolom komentar. Pemenangnya adalah mereka yang menjawab benar dan akan dipilih secara acak untuk diumumkan di akhir acara. Tetap di sini. Mari kita akan mulai acara ini. Saya mengundang Duta Besar Australia untuk Indonesia, Bapak Gary Quinlan, untuk meresmikan acara ini. Terima kasih. Thank you, Gary.
Terima kasih, Emma. Selamat siang. I'm delighted, obviously, to be here to this very special occasion and to welcome our audience, particularly our audience in Indonesia, as we launch two very important new historical resources that mark Indonesia's 75th anniversary of independence and the shared history Australia and Indonesia had at that time as both countries helped remake our region. I'm particularly honoured to partner with the Australian National Maritime Museum, a great national institution, to launch, first of all, the exhibition, a new online exhibition, Two Nations, Australia and Indonesia, 1945 to 1949, and to partner with the Australia-Indonesia Association of New South Wales, another great organisation, long history in that launch. And secondly, to also launch Anton and Me, as Emma has indicated, When Merdeka Came to Sydney, the subtitle, which is the autobiography of Australian woman Charlotte, that is Lottie Maramis. In particular, I just want to recognise again that the Australia-Indonesia Association New South Wales, formed in 1945, is very much a living institution which has made a living contribution to the relations between these two countries, our two countries. Now, last week we celebrated, of course, the 75th year of independence. It's a unique story, intriguing and fundamental to the birth of Indonesia as a nation, obviously, but also to Australia's emergence as an independent nation. Because in the support we gave Indonesia for independence, we started to emerge from our own history where we'd had no independent foreign policy to forge one, and to forge our own existence in our own neighbourhood. You know, I'm a bit older than Emma, for example, and when I was a young student in Australia, when I was 10 years old, we studied Indonesian independence as part of what was called social studies in the schools. And we were taught to be proud of Australia's support for Indonesian independence at that time. I remember in particular being intrigued by the name Hamengkubuwono IX, the Sultan of Yogyakarta. To a young boy, educated in a small school south of a place called Newcastle, to hear such an exotic name involved, of course, with other exotic names, President Sukarno in particular, Vice President Hatta, was really intriguing, and I have to say, very genuinely, has remained with me ever since. A couple of years ago, or 5 years ago now, in 2015, the National Maritime Museum held an exhibition in Sydney called The Black Armada. And later that year, with the help of the embassy in Jakarta, we took that exhibition also to Yogyakarta. Last year, for the 70th anniversary of formal diplomatic relations between the two countries, that is after 1949, we mounted an expanded exhibition called Two Nations, A Friendship is Born. And we opened that, I opened it in Jakarta's National Museum, and simultaneously in Surabaya, Makassar and Bali. And I remember Anthony Lim in particular, having the honour to meet him and for the first time learn face-to-face of his unique history and his family's unique history. And what a wonderful story. And it's great, Anthony, to know that you're here with us today to share some of that story with everybody else. So we're launching this exhibition online. Today, it includes a short film by a man called Graham Isaac, who made a small documentary with our support at the embassy about his father's participation and role, that is Joe Isaac, in the momentous McMahon Ball diplomatic mission, which I'll mention in a moment. We also have organised at the embassy screenings of the iconic film Indonesia Calling, which was made very, very, very early on at this period to mobilise support for Indonesian independence, a unique movie, and I've seen it now 3 times. We've shown it 3 times in the last 2 years in Indonesia during the last 2 years, as I say, and it's very much worth looking at today. I should note that, the story about Australian support for Indonesian independence needs to be better known by generations today. It simply isn't. Kids in school no longer learn history, they no longer study social studies with a focus on these kind of events. We need to, and this is what today is about, bring this story in a really living way to new generations. Australia was Indonesia's strongest supporter and earliest supporter for independence. 7 weeks after the Declaration of Independence, we sent a diplomatic mission, the McMahon Ball mission, to meet President Sukarno to see what support, what his plans were, what he was planning for independence, what support, including medical, that we might be able to provide, and how we would start the process of moving towards diplomatic recognition of the Indonesian Republic. we were the first country to make contact. Now, of course, the commander of the Allied forces in Indonesia at the time, who basically was preparing the way for a return to Dutch control, refused to accept the credentials of the Australian mission and deported its members on a military plane to Singapore. 3 weeks earlier, Australian workers had begun boycotts of Dutch ships transiting Australia to Indonesia, and this generated very wide community support, started to, for independence. When the first military offensive against the independent republic was launched in July 1947, Australia, which was a member of the new Security Council, just established after the Second World War, complained to the Council and took the Dutch to the Council to account for themselves. First time this had ever been done in the history of the Security Council. The Council created a committee of 3 countries to help settle the conflict. The United States, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Australia, representing at President Sukarno's request, the Indonesian independence movement in those negotiations, which ultimately led to independence in December 1949. Australia formally recognised Indonesian independence that day, and Australia today, the exhibition, of course, shows that unique history. Today, of course, we're also helping to launch the autobiography of Lottie Maramis, a woman from Sydney, young woman who volunteered to assist the independence movement, and she fell in love with Anton. You see the photos of the two of them in the book. I read the book, all of it, last night, by the way, and they're a stunning, wonderful-looking couple. And all the photos of their engagement with Sydney independence supporters and community at that time really are deeply, deeply resonant and very well worth dipping into. During when the Japanese occupied the East Indies, of course, large numbers of Indonesians who could get away came to Australia. Also, the Dutch brought to Australia large numbers of people designated as prisoners of war. They were, in fact, Indonesian nationalists, and they were imprisoned in a place called Cowra in New South Wales, a prisoner of war camp. When Australians became aware that these Indonesians were not prisoners of war, they were not Japanese supporters, they were independence supporters, we released them. That was not a popular move among 1 or 2 other countries at the time, but we did so. These people, the former prisoners of war, plus the other people, evacuees from Indonesia, formed, particularly in Sydney, but other capital cities and elsewhere, very strong groups, community groups, to support independence among Australians. Look, I'll conclude here, but I just want to say 1 or 2 other quick things about Lottie, young Charlotte. She actually made quite a strong contribution to Indonesia in its formative years. After she moved to Jakarta in the early 1950s, the beginning, she worked as a journalist and helped set up the country's first English language newspaper, the Indonesian Observer. I note, by the way, that she actually lived in an apartment as part of a very grand house just down the road from where I live in Indonesia, one of the main distinguished boulevards, very historic boulevard. Jalan Tengku Umar, former President Megawati, for example, lives close by to where Charlotte and Anton moved as well. When she returned to Australia many years later, she continued to write stories for The Observer and others until the paper eventually closed in 1998. It really is a very personal history, and it's a very living history. This is what gives it its great value, because it's not only the history of Indonesian independence and how that emerged, it's how that great cosmic struggle to achieve independence influenced two people who fell in love, and two people who fell in love at a time when Australia was not the massively multicultural nation we now are. They were pioneers as two people from two different countries, two different ethnic backgrounds, who helped forge what over decades and decades became a very new contemporary Australia. And I think it makes their story at a personal level that much more engaging and, frankly, that much more important. Look, I'd like to conclude by saying very much thank you to Hamish McDonald, who helped prepare the book for publication. Hamish is sort of totemic among Australian journalists over decades and decades and decades, with the developing interest of journalism and writing in Australia about Southeast Asia. And we all owe him a serious debt for his enthusiasm and the way in which he's conveyed that to all of us over many, many years, and continues to do so, including through current publications. I'll conclude by just saying President Widodo was in Australia for a state visit in February this year. He made an historic address to the Indonesian Parliament, and the first president of Indonesia to speak at the Parliament since SBY in 2010. And in his remarks, he said, Indonesia has no closer friend than Australia. Now, let me say, when leaders of countries and politicians address parliaments, you know, they sometimes say things like that. But let me say, in saying that, there is real strategic truth behind the statement. And that's because Australia and Indonesia over the last few years have learned that we need each other as two close neighbours and very decisive neighbours in our broader neighbourhood, more than we ever have previously and in a different way, because the region has changed geostrategically, geoeconomically, the pace of technological change, ecological change, and today, of course, with the massive public health crises that all of us are facing. And both Indonesia and Australia have recognised that together we bring so much more to the region together. And that's what we've been doing increasingly at the operational level, but also in general strategic terms over the last few years. This takes us back actually to the origins of independence, because Australia supported Indonesia because we favoured and believed in self-determination. We did not like colonialism. That was obvious among the Australian troops and members of the Australian community, but also because we saw our future, Australia's future, as being inextricably caught up and aligned with the future of Indonesia. Indonesia's success means Australia's success. And that's a point our own Prime Minister has made a few times publicly over the last couple of years. Please enjoy the exhibition today, and those who can, as soon as possible, I really recommend that you read Lottie's history of that very early year. Happy 75th anniversary of Independence Day again to all Indonesians. Merdeka, merdeka, merdeka. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bapak Kari. Saya sekarang mengundang editor dari buku Anton and Me, Bapak Hamish McDonald, untuk membaca kutipan dari autobiografi yang sangat bagus ini. Silakan Bapak Hamish. Thanks, Hamish.
friend Anton Maramis, and to begin, and it's going to be 4 years before she can settle down with Anton, and of course 4 years before President Sukarno formally moves into the palace in Jakarta. So here we are, August 1945. The word had spread among the Indonesians about Sukarno's unilateral proclamation of Indonesia's independence that was made 2 days after the Japanese surrender. The Dutch and Australian authorities tried to suppress this news, but transcripts came out. The Indonesians working down in Melbourne for the Dutch shortwave radio service had picked up the broadcast made by Sukarno. On August the 31st, the Indonesia Club in Sydney held its usual ceremony on the date normally marking the birthday of the Dutch Queen. And on previous occasions, the Dutch Consul General had come along and had diplomatically stood after the playing of the Dutch national anthem for the song Indonesia Raya, the anthem of the new republic. And he said, oh, it was just a song expressing love of the homeland. Well, this day, 1945, the Indonesia Club raised just the red and white flag of the newly proclaimed Indonesian Republic. It was a time when any equivocation had to be dropped. The Australian government had dragged its feet over delivering on a promise that it had made early in the war to allow the Dutch to form a force of 30,000 troops in Australia and then launch them into the Indies. And eventually the new Prime Minister, Ben Chifley, ruled it out, saying it had only been an agreement in principle and practical difficulties now ruled it out. Smarting at this and leaking complaints to willing ears in the Australian media about disloyalty towards a wartime ally, the Dutch started marshalling their own assets in Australia. Most of the remaining personnel of the KPM shipping line went on strike, and when evicted from their hostels at the Lido and Belvedere, 2 private hotels in Sydney, they came back and reoccupied the buildings, and the local police in Sydney refused to intervene. And in September 1945, the Waterside Workers' Federation placed a black ban on loading ships bound for the East Indies with anything but humanitarian supplies. And this ban spread to sympathetic unions in several Asian countries and on the west coast of the United States of America. And when the KPM brought in seamen from India to crew their ships, activists from the Maritime Union and our group pursued one ship in a launch, calling on its sailors to abandon the voyage. Outside the heads, the crew let off steam and stopped the ship, and as it wallowed, they agreed to help it back to port, but that was all. For the Indonesian seamen and military men, however, refusing to follow the Dutch commands meant their stay in Australia was no longer permitted. And Chifley's new immigration minister, Arthur Calwell, was a zealous enforcer of the White Australia policy of that time and took the opportunity to get rid of them. In October 1945, the troop ship Esperance Bay was chartered to begin repatriations of the Indonesians on its way up to Southeast Asia to pick up Allied prisoners of war and demobilized troops. Chifley obtained what he thought was a Dutch promise to let the Indonesian repatriates land and travel to Republican-held territory if they wished. Meanwhile, immigration officials and police rounded up the Indonesians in Australia. Finally, Anton was arrested and taken to Long Bay Jail in Sydney. And on the night of October the 12th, the Australia-Indonesia Association held an emotional farewell meeting for them in the lower chamber of the Sydney Town Hall. The next day, Anton and many others were driven down to the number 9 wharf in Pyrmont, not far from where I'm speaking, and ushered up the gangway of the Esperance Bay. The Dutch intelligence officer, Captain de Bruyn, came with other Dutch officials to make a last appeal for crewmen to return to their ships. The Indonesians were lining the rails of the ship and hooted and jeered at the Dutch officials. Then they started tearing off their badges and buttons with the KPM and KNIL crests and throwing them into the harbour or onto the wharf. They began singing Indonesia Raya and the haunting song Bengawan Solo. Whatever their fears about what awaited them, they were also elated at the thought of returning home. Some had not seen that home for almost 20 years, others for a good 4 years. And joining the longed-for arrival of Merdeka for their new nation was thrilling. For me, I was just one of many sobbing girlfriends and several wives who had been refused permission to travel back with their husbands because of the perceived danger. I caught a brief glimpse of Anton, then the ship pulled out into the harbour and sailed out under the great steel arch of the Sydney Harbour Bridge towards the Heads and the ocean. I wondered if I would ever see Anton again. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bapak Hamish. Saya sekarang mengundang Ibu Ayla Winarto, teman dekat dari Charlotte dan Anton Maramis, untuk membacakan kutipan dari buku Anton ini dalam bahasa Indonesia. Silakan Ibu Ayla.
Terima kasih. Pada akhir bulan Agustus tahun 1945, tersebar kabar di kalangan warga Indonesia tentang proklamasi kemerdekaan Indonesia unilateral yang diumumkan oleh Soekarno 2 hari setelah Jepang menyerah. Otoritas Belanda dan Australia telah berusaha menyembunyikan berita tersebut, namun transkripnya telah beredar luas. Orang Indonesia yang bekerja pada layanan radio gelombang pendek Belanda di Melbourne telah menangkap siaran pidato tersebut. Pada tanggal 31 Agustus, Klub Indonesia mengadakan upacara pada tanggal yang biasanya dirayakan hari lahirnya Ratu Belanda. Pada kesempatan sebelumnya, Konsul Jenderal Belanda bahkan pernah hadir dan berdiri secara diplomatis tanpa kelihatan tersinggung ketika lagu kebangsaan Belanda disusul lagu kaum nasionalis yang kemudian menjadi lagu kebangsaan Republik mereka, yaitu Indonesia Raya. Lagu itu hanyalah lagu yang mengekspresikan cinta pada tanah air, menurutnya. Pada waktu upacara ditandai dengan pengibaran merah putih, Republik Indonesia yang kemerdekaannya baru saja diproklamasikan. Mulai saat itu, segala keraguan harus dihilangkan. Pemerintah Australia telah mengulur-ulur janji mereka di awal perang untuk mengizinkan 30.000 pasukan Belanda dibentuk dan dilatih di Australia untuk kemudian dikerahkan ke Hindia Belanda. Akhirnya, Perdana Menteri Australia yang baru dilantik, yaitu Ben Chifley, mengesampingkan hal itu dengan mengatakan bahwa itu hanya kesepakatan secara prinsip saja dan kesulitan praktis telah mengakibatkan tidak mungkin dilaksanakan. Pihak Belanda merasa kesal mendengar ini, dan setelah membocorkan keluhannya ke media Australia tentang ketidaksetiaan, mereka mulai menyusun sendiri aset mereka di Australia. Sebagian besar sisa personel KPM melakukan aksi mogok kerja, dan setelah diusir dari asrama mereka di Lido dan Belvedere, yaitu 2 hotel swasta di Sydney, mereka kemudian malah kembali menempatinya Polisi setempat menolak untuk ikut campur. Pada bulan September, Federasi Pekerja Pelabuhan memperlakukan boikot atau black ban pada tugas bongkar muat kapal yang menuju ke Hindia Belanda, kecuali yang membawa pasokan kemanusiaan. Boikot itu menyebar ke serikat-serikat simpatisan di beberapa negara Asia dan di pantai barat Amerika Serikat pun. Ketika pelaut-pelaut dibawa dari India untuk bekerja pada suatu kapal Belanda, beberapa aktivis dari Serikat Maritim bersama kelompok kami mengejar dan menyerukan kepada para pelaut tersebut untuk membatalkan perjalanannya. Di luar wilayah perairan Heads, para kru kapal tersebut beristirahat dan mematikan mesin kapal. Saat kapal itu sedang berhenti, mereka mengambil keputusan untuk putar balik dan kembali ke pelabuhan. Bagi para pelaut dan tentara Indonesia yang menolak mengikuti perintah Belanda, berarti mereka tidak diizinkan untuk tetap tinggal di Australia. Menteri Imigrasi Kabinet Chifley saat itu, Arthur Powell, adalah pendukung kuat kebijakan Australia Putih dan mengambil kesempatan itu untuk menyingkirkan warga Indonesia. Pada bulan Oktober tahun 1945, kapal pasukan Esperance Bay dicater untuk mulai memulangkan para tawanan perang sekutu dan pasukan yang telah didemobilisasikan dari Asia Tenggara. Chifley menganggap telah ada perjanjian dari pihak Belanda untuk mengizinkan para repatriat mendarat dan melakukan perjalanan ke wilayah yang dikuasai Republik. Ketika itu, petugas imigrasi dan polisi mengamankan banyak warga Indonesia. Akhirnya, Anton pun ditangkap dan masuk penjara Long Bay. Pada malam hari tanggal 12 Oktober, Perhimpunan Australia Indonesia mengadakan acara perpisahan yang penuh haru di ruang bagian bawah Balai Kota Sydney. Keesokan harinya, Anton dan warga lainnya diantar ke dermaga nomor 9 di Pyrmont, lalu dikawal naik ke kapal Esperance Bay. Perwira intelijen Belanda, Kapten de Bruin, datang bersama pejabat Belanda lainnya untuk mengajukan himbauan terakhir agar awak kapal kembali ke kapal mereka yang sedang menganggur. Akan tetapi, orang Indonesia yang berbaris di geladak kapal malah berteriak dan mencemooh. Kemudian mereka mulai merobek lencana dan kancing baju mereka yang berlambang KPM atau kenil dan membuangnya ke laut atau ke dermaga. Mereka lalu mulai menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya dan juga lagu yang sangat mengharukan itu, Bengawan Solo. Bagaimanapun rasa takut mereka tentang apa yang akan dihadapinya di kemudian hari, akan tetapi mereka juga gembira mengingat akan kembali ke kampung halamannya yang oleh banyak diantaranya sudah 20 tahun ditinggalkan dan oleh yang lain sudah 4 tahun. Ditambah pula mereka tidak sabar menyambut kemerdekaan yang sudah lama dinantikan untuk negara baru mereka itu. Sedangkan saya hanyalah satu di antara sekian banyak pacar perempuan yang menangis terseduh-seduh, beserta beberapa istri yang dilarang ikut suami yang dipulangkan ke Indonesia karena keadaannya dianggap berbahaya. Sekilas aku melihat Anton. Kemudian kapal itu menjauhi pelabuhan dan lewat di bawah lengkungan besar jembatan baja menuju wilayah perairan Heads, terus ke laut lepas. Aku bertanya-tanya kepada diriku, apakah mungkin aku akan bisa bertemu lagi dengan Anton? Thank you.
Terima kasih Ibu Ayla. Sekarang saya mengundang Bapak Anthony Lim yang akan berbicara mewakili Museum Maritim Nasional Australia. Keluarga Bapak Anthony menyaksikan sejarah yang terungkap pada saat Australia mendukung kemerdekaan Indonesia. Beliau akan menceritakan kepada kita mengenai sejarah ini melalui foto-foto koleksi keluarganya dan dari pameran daring Two Nations Australia and Indonesia tahun 1945 sampai 49. yang sekarang dapat Anda kunjungi secara online di www.sea.museum. Silakan Bapak Anthony.
Terima kasih Ibu Emma. Namaku Anthony Lim. Pada tahun 1945, akhirnya Perang Dunia Kedua. Aku masih ingat keadaan kacau dan rusuh akhirnya perang ini. Perjuangan kemerdekaan Indonesia bermuncul. Aku hampir 3 tahun dan lahir di Semarang, kota dengan pelabuhan di Jawa Tengah Utara. Ayahku seorang dokter dan ibuku guru. Mereka berdua mendapat pendidikan Belanda. Di rumahku, di depan praktek dokter dan di belakang rumah tinggalku. Antara tahun 1942 dan 45, selama pemerintah Jepang, negara Indonesia menderita aturan ketat. Ayahku terus merawat pasien dari rumah prakteknya. Aku masih mengingat pada sore hari naik sepeda dengan ayahku keliling mengunjungi pasien. Duduk di kursi atas stang sepeda. Waktu kita melalui penjaga militer Jepang, kita harus turun dari sepeda, membungkuk untuk menghormati penjaga Jepang. Demikian zaman perjuangan Indonesia merdeka. Pada bulan November 1945, di belakang rumah aku ada desa Peloran. 6 pesawat tempur Inggris menjatuhkan bomnya, mencoba menghentikan serangan dari perjuangan pemuda Indonesia. Mendengar ledakan keras, aku tidak bisa lupa. Meskipun keluarga merasa takut, ayahku berani memakai jas putih dokter dan helm dengan palang merah. Dia keluar dari pelindungan rumahnya untuk merawat korban yang terluka karena pemboman ini. Para pejuang Indonesia kebanyakan tentara sukarela, pemuda dengan senjata bambu runcing atau parang. Mereka berani melawan pasukan Inggris dan Belanda dengan alat perang modern. Aku juga ingat rumah ayahku dan tempat prakteknya memiliki ruang tunggu luas, menampung 70 lebih pasien. Selalu ada beberapa picak yang menunggu di bawah pohon beringin besar. Pembayaran dari pasien yang tidak mampu biasanya telur, buah-buahan, atau seekor ayam. Bahan makanan sederhana mengganti uang. Pendidikan sekolah Belanda di Semarang dan Jakarta pada tahun 1948, sekolah ditutup dan semua guru Belanda harus kembali karena konflik Irian Barat. Aku meneruskan pendidikanku di Singapura dan kemudian tiba di Sydney untuk belajar arsitektur di University of Sydney. Di sini, aku bertemu dengan istriku bernama Helen, seorang guru yang lahir di Leichhardt dekat pusat Sydney. Kami tidak mengetahui bahwa keluarga berdua memiliki hubungan dengan perjuangan kemerdekaan Indonesia. Sekitar 15 tahun yang lalu, sejarawan Australia Drew Cottle menulis tentang kegiatan politik ayahnya Ibu Helen. Dia bernama Fred Wong dan lahir di Cobar, New South Wales Utara. Kegiatannya termasuk peran dalam film tahun 1946 bernama Indonesia Calling. Film ini dibuat oleh seorang sutradara pemerintah Belanda bernama Joris Evans. Maksudnya Joris membuat film memberi cerita kekuasaan kolonial Belanda kembali ke Indonesia. Tetapi dia memilih membuat film yang lebih menarik, yaitu cerita larangan hitam kapal-kapal Belanda yang memuat tentaranya kembali untuk menekan kemerdekaan Indonesia. Larangan ini dilakukan oleh buruh maritim Australia. Mereka mendukung Indonesia merdeka. Aku membawa film Indonesia Calling ini ke kantor Konsul Jenderal Indonesia di Sydney waktu perayaan kemerdekaan pada tahun 2014. Wah, ku merasa terkejut bahwa tidak ada satu orang yang kenal dengan cerita ini, kecuali seorang nenek Australia yang berusia 80 tahun, namanya Lottie Meramis. Tentu saja dia kenal dengan film ini dan ceritanya. Tante Lottie sendiri peran di film ini. Lottie berumur 17 tahun, gadis yang cantik, memakai rok putih di adegan gamelan dan tarian. Buku riwayat hidupnya yang luar biasa, Anton and Me, diluncurkan hari ini. Film Indonesia Calling juga ditampilkan pada Duta Besar Indonesia di Canberra. Bapak Duta Besar dengan senang hati setuju untuk memberi bantuan kepada Museum Maritim Nasional Australia di Sydney mengadakan pameran Black Armada. Dukungan lebih lanjut dari Australia Indonesia Institute, bagian dari Kementerian Luar Negeri Australia, untuk pameran Armada Hitam yang diadakan di Yogyakarta pada tahun 2015 untuk merayakan HUT 70 kemerdekaan Indonesia. Pameran ini dibuka oleh Duta Besar Australia dan bersama Duta Besar Indonesia. Film Indonesia Calling menampilkan dukungan buruh maritim Australia untuk Indonesia merdeka. Kemerdekaan negara yang dijamin oleh naskah Atlantic Charter ini menjadi dasar untuk pendirian PBB atau United Nations pada bulan Juli 1945, waktu Perang Dunia Kedua berakhir. Larangan hitam kapal-kapal Belanda dimulaikan oleh pelaut Indonesia dan aktivis politik dari Digul, Papua. Mereka dibawa oleh Belanda ke Australia pada tahun 1943. Buruh pelaut Australia bergabung dengan buruh pelaut dari China dan Hindia untuk mencegah kapal-kapal Belanda. Pelaut China dipimpin oleh Arthur Cheng, teman baik Fred Wong. Dukungan internasional dalam film Indonesia Calling bersama berita di halaman pertama surat kabar di Australia seperti Sydney Morning Herald pada bulan September 1945 memberi berita tentang kemerdekaan Indonesia. Ini hal penting sekali. Kenapa? Karena kabar Indonesia merdeka disiarkan kepada seluruh dunia dan PBB yang baru didirikan. Memberitahu bahwa Indonesia menjadi merdeka dan pemimpinnya mampu, demokratis, dan kemerdekaan ini didukung oleh rakyat yang dipimpin oleh Presiden Soekarno. Sebab ini, tentara sekutu Inggris dan Belanda tidak berani menangkap pemimpin pemerintah Indonesia, Soekarno, Hatta, dan Syahrir, untuk dimasukkan penjara atau diasingkan, dan mereka dituduh sebagai musuh sekutu. Fred meneruskan kegiatannya dan mendirikan Asian Airlines dengan 9 kapal terbang Catalina. Tujuan kapal terbang ini wilayah Republik Indonesia untuk memberi keperluan seperti obat dan kembali dengan bahan pertanian Indonesia. Tetapi pada bulan Juli 1948, dalam keadaan tidak jelas, Fred tenggelam waktu memeriksa kapal terbang di Danau Boga di Victoria. Fred hanya berumur 42 tahun dan putrinya Helen berumur 5 tahun. Walaupun istriku Helen tidak menahu cerita bantuan ayahnya untuk kemerdekaan Indonesia, pada saat ini kita mengerti bahwa perjuangan kemerdekaan Indonesia dan dukungan Australia telah membentuk penghidupan kita. Terima kasih. Hidup kemitraan Indonesia-Australia. Long live the Australian-Indonesia Partnership. Thank you.
Terima kasih Bapak Anthony. Wow, siang yang indah untuk berbagi cerita tentang sejarah antara Australia dan Indonesia. Sepertinya program acara hari ini hampir selesai. Terima kasih sudah menjawab pertanyaan kuis di awal acara. Oke, nomor 1. Jawaban yang benar adalah Kota Sydney, kota di mana Charlotte Meramis bertemu suaminya Anton Meramis. Dan pertanyaan kedua adalah Museum Maritime National Australia, museum yang meluncurkan pemeran dari hari ini. Ada 4 pemeran kuis hari ini. Nomor 1, Vincencio Dugis. Nomor 2, Esther Siagian. Nomor 3, Pati Chia. Dan akhirnya, Budi Anton Parsaribu. Wah, selamat semua. Tim kami akan menghubungi Anda untuk menyampaikan hadiah menarik. Now, jangan lupa untuk mengunjungi website Museum Maritim Nasional Australia untuk melihat pemeran daring Two Nations, Australia and Indonesia, tahun 1945 sampai 49. Silakan kunjungi www.sea.museum. Terima kasih untuk para pembicara hari ini. Sampai jumpa di acara Kedubes Australia Jakarta selanjutnya. Terima kasih teman-teman.
Yes.
So nice to meet you again.